The stars burned red with the fire of dying ships. Admiral Kane stood on the bridge of the battleship Defiance, watching the last of humanity's defense fleets scatter like leaves in a storm. The massive view screen showed the terrible truth. Earth's outer defenses had crumbled under the Dominion's assault. "Admiral, we have lost contact with the Fourth Fleet," reported Captain Mills, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. "The Titan's Gate defense platform is gone. We estimate 60% casualties across all remaining units." Kane's weathered face showed no emotion, but his hands gripped the rail until his knuckles turned white. 300 years the Dominion. Empire had swept across the galaxy, crushing world after world under their iron rule. Now, it was humanity's turn to fall. "Order all ships to fall back to Rally Point 7, Kane commanded. "Begin immediate evacuation procedures for all non-essential personnel." Through the vast emptiness of space, the Dominion war fleet advanced like a wall of death. Their ships were massive black pyramids that blotted out the stars, each one larger than Earth's biggest cities. Energy weapons lanced out from their hulls, turning human vessels into balls of expanding gas and twisted metal. On the cargo deck of the Defiance, Marine Sergeant Jake Torres checked his drop pod for the third time. The evacuation was chaos. Soldiers, civilians, and crew members all rushing to escape pods and transport ships. Torres had been assigned to Pod Base 7, but the automated systems were failing under the stress of battle. "Torres, get your gear and move to Transport Delta," shouted Lieutenant Brown over the noise. "Your pod assignment has been changed." But as Torres gathered his equipment, a massive explosion rocked the ship. The lights went out for a moment, and when they came back on, emergency alarms were screaming. The deck tilted at a dangerous angle as the ship's artificial gravity struggled to compensate for damage. Torres was thrown against his drop pod as another blast shook the Defiance. The pod's automated system suddenly activated, sealing him inside. Before he could react, warning lights flashed red as the launch sequence began. "Wait," Torres pounded on the inner hatch. "This is the wrong pod," but the ship's computer was beyond hearing. The Defiance had taken critical damage, and automated systems were launching everything they could to save lives. Torres felt the familiar sensation of being shot out into space as his pod ejected from the dying battleship through the small window. Torres watched the fleet battle rage around him. Human ships were retreating in every direction, their formations broken. The Dominion vessels moved forward like hungry sharks, their weapons reaching out to destroy anything that moved. Torres checked his navigation display and felt his blood turn cold. Instead of heading toward the evacuation rally point, his pod was falling toward Earth. The planet looked peaceful from this distance, blue and white and beautiful. But Torres knew the truth: Dominion. Ground forces were already landing on the surface. The pod's communication system crackled with desperate voices. "All units, this is Admiral Kane. Earth Command has fallen. Repeat, Earth Command has fallen. All ships proceed to designated evacuation points. May God have mercy on our souls." Torres tried to change his pod's course, but the navigation system was damaged. He was locked into a descent path that would take him straight down to Earth's surface. Below him, he could see the red glow of orbital bombardment as Dominion ships softened up landing zones. The pod shook violently as it hit Earth's atmosphere. Torres was pressed back into his seat as gravity took hold. Through the window, he could see smoke rising from burning cities. Massive Dominion transport ships hung in the sky like dark clouds, dropping troops and war machines. The ground rushed up to meet him. Torres braced for impact as his pod's emergency systems fired retro rockets. The landing was hard, but survivable. When the shaking stopped, Torres found himself in the ruins of what had once been New Geneva. The city was a wasteland. Buildings lay in rubble, their twisted metal skeletons reaching toward a sky filled with smoke. In the distance, Torres could hear the sound of heavy weapons fire and the roar of alien aircraft. Torres opened his pod's hatch and stepped out into hell. The air was thick with dust and the smell of burning. His military training kicked in immediately. He checked his rifle, tested his communications gear, and scanned the area for threats. The streets were empty except for debris and the occasional body. Torres moved carefully through the ruins, using destroyed vehicles and collapsed walls for cover. His communication system was picking up scattered transmissions from other human survivors, but they were weak and fragmented. As Torres rounded a corner, he saw them Dominion ground troops. The aliens were 7 feet tall and covered in natural armor that looked like black stone. They carried energy weapons that could cut through steel, and they moved with the confidence of conquerors. Torres counted 6 of them searching through a collapsed building. They were looking for something or someone. He could hear voices coming from beneath the rubble. Human voices. The smart thing would be to avoid contact. One Marine against an entire occupation force was suicide. But Torres had not survived 15 years of military service by taking the smart option when lives were at stake. He checked his rifle one more time and moved into position. The Dominion soldiers had not seen him yet. They were focused on their search, pulling away chunks of concrete with their bare hands. Torres could hear the voices more clearly now, a woman and what sounded like children. Trapped in a basement beneath the destroyed building, Torres took aim at the nearest alien soldier. The range was good, and he had clear shots at 3 of them. Then before they would be able to take cover, his finger tightened on the trigger. The first shot took the lead soldier in the head, dropping him instantly. The second shot caught another alien in the chest, spinning him around. The remaining 4 soldiers scattered, seeking cover behind debris. Energy blasts sizzled past Torres as he changed position. The alien weapons left glowing trails in the air and turned concrete into vapor where they hit. Torres rolled behind. A wrecked car's returned fire chewed up the ground where he had been standing. The trapped civilians were screaming now, terrified by the battle raging above them. Torres knew he had to end this quickly before Dominion reinforcements arrived. He could already hear the sound of aircraft. Engines in the distance. One alien soldier made the mistake of exposing himself as he tried to flank Torres. A single shot from the Marine's rifle ended that threat. The remaining 3 aliens began to fall back, probably calling for support. Torres let them go. His priority was the civilians. He ran to the collapsed building and began pulling away debris, following the sound of voices. Within minutes, he had cleared a path to the basement where a woman and 2 young children were hiding. "Come on," Torres said, helping them out. "Need to move before they come back with friends." The woman looked at him with amazement. "You're military, but I thought we heard the fleet was destroyed." Torres shouldered his rifle and looked. Up at the smoke-filled sky, somewhere up there, the last ships of humanity's navy were fleeing into deep space. Earth was lost. The war was over, but Jake Torres was still here, and as long as he drew breath, the fight would continue. 3 days had passed since Torres crashed into the ruins of New Geneva. The woman and children he rescued were safely hidden in an underground shelter with other survivors. But Torres could not stay hidden. Every hour that passed meant more humans died under Dominion rule. The city had become a maze of enemy patrols and war machines. Dominion soldiers moved in groups of 6, searching building by building for survivors. Their massive walker tanks stomped through the streets, crushing anything in their path.
Oh.
Ships flew overhead constantly, bringing in more troops and supplies. Torres studied the enemy from his hiding spot in a destroyed office building. His damaged exosuit was running on backup power, but it still gave him enhanced strength and protection. More importantly, it had a stealth mode that could hide him from basic scans. The first target was obvious, a Dominion supply convoy moving through the main street below. 3 heavy trucks protected by 2 walker escorts, probably carrying weapons and ammunition to forward bases. If Torres could destroy it, he would hurt their operations and send a message. Torres waited until the convoy entered the narrow passage between 2 collapsed buildings. Then he struck the improvised explosive he had planted in the road, went off under the lead truck, flipping it over and blocking the path. The second truck stopped, its alien crew confused by the sudden attack. That was when Torres opened fire from above.
Ow.
His rifle sent precise shots into the truck's fuel tank, turning it into a fireball. The third truck tried to reverse, but Torres had planned for that too. Another explosive device blocked their retreat. The walker escorts turned their weapons toward Torres's position, but he was already moving. The aliens' energy beams turned concrete into dust, but Torres was no longer there. He had learned their tactics in the past 3 days. They were strong and well-armed, but they were not used to fighting an enemy who refused to stand still. Torres used the city's ruins to his advantage. He knew every shortcut, every hiding place, every way to move unseen. The aliens were strangers here, invaders in a place they did not understand. That was their weakness. The convoy attack was just the beginning. Over the next week, Torres hit target after target. He destroyed communication towers that the Dominion used to coordinate their forces. He sabotaged fuel depots, turning them into massive explosions that could be seen for miles. He attacked patrol groups, always striking fast and disappearing before reinforcements could arrive. The aliens began to change their behavior. Patrols became larger and more careful. They started avoiding certain areas of the city where Torres had been active. Supply convoys traveled with heavy escorts and took different routes each time. But Torres adapted too. He started using the city's old subway tunnels to move around unseen. He salvaged weapons and equipment from destroyed Dominion forces. Most importantly, he began making contact with other survivor groups scattered across the city. The survivors had been hiding in basements and sewers, too afraid to fight back. But when they heard that someone was actually hurting the invaders, hope began to return. Small groups started leaving supplies for the mysterious fighter they called Ghost 7, a name Torres had used in radio transmissions. Ghost 7, this is Shelter Group 4, came a whisper over Torres's radio. We have eyes on a Dominion patrol setting up a checkpoint at 5th and Main, 12 soldiers, 1 walker. Torres smiled as he checked his rifle. The survivors were becoming his eyes and ears across the city. What had started as one man's desperate fight was growing into something bigger. The checkpoint was a problem. It blocked the route between 2 major survivor shelters, cutting off their communication and supply lines. Torres studied it through his rifle scope from a building 3 blocks away. The aliens had chosen their position well. Good fields of fire in all directions, solid cover, and quick access to reinforcements. A direct attack would be suicide. But Torres had learned not to think like a conventional soldier anymore. It was a ghost, a shadow that struck where the enemy least expected. The attack came at dawn, when the night shift was changing with the day shift. Torres had spent hours crawling through the sewers to get into position beneath the checkpoint. When he emerged from a storm drain behind the aliens' defensive line, they were completely surprised. The first alien never knew what hit him. Torres's knife found the gap in his armor, dropping him silently. The second guard turned just in time to see Torres's rifle muzzle before a burst of gunfire ended his life, and began turning its massive cannon toward Torres. But the Marine was already running, using the checkpoint's own defenses as cover. He reached the walker's blind spot and attached an explosive charge to its leg joint. The explosion brought down the 15-foot-tall war machine with a crash that shook the ground. The remaining aliens scrambled for cover as Torres disappeared back into the storm drain system, leaving behind 10 dead enemies and a destroyed checkpoint. But this victory came with a cost. The Dominion was no longer treating Torres as a minor irritation. They were bringing in specialists, hunter-killer teams equipped with advanced sensors and tracking equipment. The war for New Geneva was escalating. Torres felt the change immediately. The new enemy patrols moved differently, more cautiously, but also more efficiently. They had equipment that could track his heat signature and movement patterns. His stealth advantage was disappearing. First real test came 2 days later. Torres was moving through an abandoned shopping district when his motion sensors detected enemies closing in from 3 directions. This was not a random patrol. They were hunting him specifically. Torres found cover in the ruins of an old department store and assessed his situation. 12 Dominion soldiers with advanced armor and weapons, plus some kind of tracking specialist he could not identify. They knew where he was, and they were not going away. The battle lasted for hours. Torres used every trick he had learned, moving through the building's multiple levels and using its maze-like layout to prevent the aliens from surrounding him. Picked them off one by one, but they kept coming. Finally, Torres was down too. His last magazine when he heard something that changed everything, human voices on his radio. Not whispers this time, but clear, determined communication. Ghost 7, this is Strike Team Alpha. We have your position. Beginning attack on enemy rear elements. Through the smoke and dust, Torres saw muzzle flashes from human weapons. The survivors had organized themselves into fighting groups. They were not hiding anymore. They were fighting back. The remaining Dominion soldiers found themselves caught between Torres and the newly formed resistance fighters. Caught in a crossfire, they fell quickly. When the shooting stopped, Torres emerged from cover to find himself face to face with 20 armed humans. Thought you could use some help, said their leader, a former police officer named Davis. We figured it was time to stop letting you have all the fun. Torres looked at their faces and saw something that had been missing. For days, hope mixed with determination, his one-man war had become something bigger. The resistance was born. But even as they celebrated this small victory, Torres knew the real fight was just beginning. The Dominion would not tolerate this rebellion. They would send more troops, bigger weapons, and deadlier hunters. Still, for the first time since crashing on Earth, Torres allowed himself to believe that maybe, just maybe, they had a chance. The Dominion hunter teams were getting closer. Torres could feel them tightening the net around his area of operations. The resistance groups he had helped form were fighting well, but they needed a real advantage, something that could turn the tide of this hopeless war. The answer came from an unexpected source. Davis, the former police officer who led Strike Team Alpha, brought Torres intelligence that changed everything. A survivor named Rebecca, who had worked at the old Genesis research complex, claimed there were military secrets buried beneath the facility. She says it was some kind of defense project, Davis explained as they crouched in the ruins of a subway station. Top secret stuff. She only knew about it because she had security clearance for the building maintenance systems. Torres studied the map Rebecca had drawn. The Genesis complex was 15 miles outside the city, deep in Dominion-controlled territory. Getting there would be dangerous, but if there was even a chance of finding weapons or intelligence that could help them, it was worth the risk. The journey took 3 days. Torres and a small team moved at night, avoiding Dominion patrols and using the forest cover to stay hidden. The research complex had been bombed during the initial invasion, but the main buildings were still standing. What they found was better than Torres had hoped. The complex was not just a research facility. It was the entrance to a massive underground installation that stretched for miles beneath the earth. Emergency lighting still functioned in the lower levels, powered by geothermal generators that had been running automatically for decades. "This place is huge," whispered Maria, one of the resistance fighters. How did no one know about this? Torres was asking himself the same question as they explored deeper into the facility. The walls were lined with computer terminals and equipment he did not recognize. Everything was covered in dust, but it all looked functional. Most importantly, there were no signs that the Dominion had found this place. In the deepest level of the complex, they found what they were looking for. A massive chamber filled with computer servers and control systems, all centered around a single command console. Above it, large screens displayed a map of Earth with thousands of red dots scattered across every continent. Torres approached the console carefully. A single message was displayed on the main screen. Project Prometheus, status, dormant. Awaiting military authorization for activation? Prometheus, Torres said quietly. I have heard that name before. You tried to access the system, but it required biometric identification. Torres placed his hand on the scanner, not expecting anything to happen. To his surprise, the machine hummed to life. Green lights began flashing across the control panels. Authorization confirmed, announced a computerized voice. Staff Sergeant Jake Torres, Marine Corps serial number 284799156. Welcome to Project Prometheus Command Center. The screens around the chamber came alive with data. Torres stared in amazement as the system displayed information about a global defense network that had been hidden for over 30 years. Satellites in orbit, weapon platforms buried beneath, major cities, automated defense systems scattered across the planet, all waiting for activation. My God, Maria breathed, looking at the displays. This is why Earth fell so easily. Our real defenses were never activated. Torres read through the system files, trying to understand what he was looking at. Project Prometheus had been designed as Earth's final failsafe, a defense network so powerful that it could hold off an invasion fleet on its own. But it required military authorization to activate, and apparently, everyone who knew about it had died when Earth Command fell. Everyone. Except for Torres, whose biometric data was still in the system from his last security clearance update. The activation sequence was complex, requiring multiple confirmations and security codes. Torres worked through each step carefully, knowing that one mistake could destroy their only chance. The other resistance fighters watched nervously as he entered commands and verified his identity multiple times. Finally, the main screen displayed a single message. Project Prometheus activation sequence initiated. Global defense network coming online. At first nothing seemed to happen. Then Torres heard a low rumbling sound coming from deep beneath the facility. The sound spread outward as if something enormous was waking up under the earth. Across the chamber, monitoring screens began showing activity from defense sites around the world. In space, dormant satellites were powering up their weapon systems. Underground bunkers were opening to reveal missile launchers and automated gun platforms. The red dots on the global map were turning green one by one. Torres Davis called over the radio from their lookout position. "Something is happening up here. The Dominion forces are acting strange. Their communications are going crazy." Torres smiled as he watched more systems come online. The Dominion had thought they were occupying a dead world. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The first strikes came from orbit. Satellite weapons that had been disguised as communication arrays suddenly revealed their true purpose. Beams of concentrated energy lanced down from space, targeting Dominion ships and ground installations with surgical precision. On the surface, Torres could hear explosions in the distance as hidden weapon systems emerged from underground bunkers. Automated defense platforms that had been buried for decades were rising from the earth like mechanical flowers. Their targeting systems immediately locking onto alien signatures. The Dominion command post outside New Geneva was the first major target to be destroyed. Torres watched on the monitors as missile strikes turned the alien base into a crater. Dominion aircraft that had dominated the skies for weeks were being shot down by surface-to-air systems they never knew existed. But the real surprise was the hunter-killer drones. Thousands of them were launching from hidden factories buried deep underground. These were not simple weapons. They were intelligent machines capable of operating independently, hunting Dominion forces with relentless efficiency. "The entire alien occupation force is under attack," reported Davis, his voice filled with amazement. "They are being hit from every direction. Some of them are trying to retreat to their ships." Torres coordinated with the Prometheus system, using his military knowledge to direct the automated defenses where they would be most effective. The network was incredibly advanced, but it still needed human intelligence to make tactical decisions. The Dominion forces in New Geneva were in complete chaos. Their communication networks were being jammed by satellite signals. Their supply lines were being cut by drone attacks. Their reinforcements were being destroyed before they could reach the battlefield. For the first time since the invasion began, the aliens were on the defensive. Torres watched the tactical displays with growing excitement. The Prometheus network was performing better than he had hoped. Dominion casualties were mounting rapidly, and their organized resistance was crumbling. But he knew this was just the beginning. The network would need time to fully deploy, and the Dominion would not take this surprise lying down. They would adapt, bring in reinforcements, and try to locate the source of the attacks. Still, as Torres watched alien forces retreat from positions they had held for weeks, he felt something he had not experienced since crashing on Earth. Hope. Real genuine hope that humanity might actually have a chance to win this war. The resistance fighters in the command center were celebrating, but Torres remained focused on the tactical situation. The Prometheus network was powerful, but it was not invincible. The real test would come when the Dominion figured out what was happening and brought their full military might to bear against Earth's awakened defenses. But for now, Torres allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. The war was no longer a foregone conclusion. Earth was fighting back, and the galaxy was about to learn that humanity was far from defeated. The Dominion High Command was in chaos. General Vex stood before the massive tactical display in his flagship, watching as red warning indicators spread across the map of Earth like a disease. In 6 hours, his occupation force had lost 40% of its strength to weapons that appeared from nowhere. "How's this possible?" Vex demanded, his 4 eyes blazing with anger. "Our intelligence showed this planet had no significant defenses." "Sir, the attacks are coming from everywhere," reported his tactical officer. "Hidden satellites, underground bunkers, automated systems we never detected. The humans have been waiting for us." Torres watched the chaos unfold from the Prometheus command center. The defense network was operating at 70% capacity now, with more systems coming online every hour. Dominion forces across the globe were being systematically destroyed by weapons they could not see or predict. The hunter-killer drones were particularly effective. They moved through cities and forests like metal wolves, hunting alien patrols with deadly precision. Each drone was equipped with advanced AI that learned from every encounter, making them harder to stop with each passing hour. "Torres, you need to see this," called Maria from one of the monitoring stations. "We are getting signals from the orbital platforms." Torres moved to her station and watched the data streaming in. The space-based weapons were not just firing randomly, they were coordinating their attacks with surgical precision. Dominion transport ships trying to evacuate their troops were being destroyed before they could escape Earth's atmosphere. But the most shocking development was happening on the communications channels. Torres heard alien voices speaking in panicked tones, their usual arrogance replaced by fear and confusion. The mighty Dominion army was learning what it felt like to be hunted. Davis contacted Torres from the surface. "The aliens are pulling back to defensive positions. Some of their units are actually running away. I have never seen anything like it." Torres coordinated the Prometheus systems to take advantage of the alien retreat. Orbital strikes targeted their evacuation points while ground-based weapons cut off their escape routes. The Dominion forces that had conquered Earth in a matter of days were being dismantled piece by piece. The psychological impact was just as important as the physical damage. For weeks, the Dominion had treated Earth as a conquered world, moving their forces without fear of meaningful resistance. Every step they took could trigger an attack from hidden weapons they could not locate or destroy. Commander Kale of the 3rd Dominion Infantry watched his unit's morale collapse as another patrol failed to return. His soldiers, who had fought across a dozen worlds, were beginning to show signs of real fear. They had never faced an enemy that seemed to be everywhere and nowhere at the same time. "Sir, we request permission to withdraw to the secure zone," his lieutenant reported. "The men are ... unsettled by these attacks." Kale understood their fear. The humans had somehow turned their own planet into a weapon against the invaders. Every building could hide a gun turret. Every hill could conceal missile launchers. And the sky itself rained death from invisible satellites. Torres used his military experience to maximize the network's effectiveness. He studied Dominion movement patterns and predicted where they would retreat, then positioned the automated defenses to catch them in carefully planned ambushes. The aliens were fighting a war against an enemy that knew their every move before they made it. The tide of battle was turning so quickly that even Torres was amazed. Resistance groups across Earth were emerging from hiding, emboldened by the sight of alien forces in retreat. Human survivors who had spent weeks hiding in ruins were now picking up weapons and joining the fight. Rebecca, the researcher who had led them to the Prometheus facility, monitored the global communications networks. "Torres, you need to hear this. We are picking up transmissions from other human colonies." Torres listened to the crackling radio. Signals from distant worlds. The news of Earth's resistance was spreading through quantum communication networks, reaching human settlements that had been under Dominion control for months or even years. "This is New Tokyo Colony," came one transmission. "We confirm Earth is fighting back, beginning our own resistance operations. The Dominion garrison here is in panic." Similar messages were coming from colonies across the galaxy. "The impossible. News that Earth had not only survived but was actually defeating the Dominion was inspiring uprisings everywhere humans lived under alien rule. On the planet Kepler-442b, human mining colony that had been enslaved for 8 months suddenly rose up against their Dominion overseers. The alien guards, already nervous about reports from Earth, were overwhelmed by the coordinated rebellion. Within hours, the entire planet was back under human control. General Vex realized that the situation was spiraling beyond his control. What had started as a simple occupation was becoming a galaxy-wide crisis. Dominion's reputation for invincibility was crumbling, and subject species on other worlds were beginning to question their own submission. "Sir, we have lost contact with the Kepler-442b garrison," reported his communications officer. "The Beta Centauri colonies are also reporting unrest. Our forces there are requesting immediate reinforcements." Vex studied the strategic situation. With growing alarm, the Dominion had ruled through fear and overwhelming force for 3 centuries. But fear was a fragile weapon, and the humans had shattered it completely. If other species followed humanity's example, the entire empire could collapse. Torres coordinated with resistance leaders across Earth to plan the next phase of the campaign. The Prometheus network had given them the initiative. But they needed to press their advantage while the Dominion was still reeling from the surprise attacks. "We need to target their command structure," Torres explained to Davis and the other resistance leaders. "If we can eliminate their senior officers and communication centers, we can prevent them from organizing a counterattack." The assault on the Dominion's primary command post was a masterpiece of coordination between human tactics and automated firepower. Torres used the Prometheus system to jam alien communications while resistance fighters attacked from multiple directions. The battle lasted only 30 minutes before the alien commanders were either dead or captured. With their leadership destroyed, Dominion forces across Earth began surrendering or attempting to flee the planet. But the orbital defense platforms made escape impossible. Any ship trying to leave Earth's atmosphere was destroyed within minutes of launch. The psychological victory was complete when Torres broadcast a message on all Dominion military frequencies. His voice, calm and confident, reached every alien soldier still on Earth. "This is Staff Sergeant Jake Torres, Human Marine Corps. Your invasion has failed. Your forces are defeated. Any Dominion personnel who surrender immediately will be treated. According to the laws of war, any who continue to resist will be destroyed by Earth's defense systems." The response was immediate. Across the planet, alien units began laying down their weapons and broadcasting surrender signals. The mighty Dominion army, which had conquered countless worlds, was capitulating to a planet they thought they had already defeated. But Torres knew that this was only the beginning. The Dominion Empire was vast, with millions of ships and billions of soldiers. Earth had won a crucial battle, but the war for galactic freedom was just starting. Still, as he watched alien troops march into human-controlled prisoner camps, Torres felt a satisfaction he had not experienced since the war began. Humanity was no longer fighting for survival. They were fighting for victory, and for the first time since the invasion started, victory seemed possible. The emergency session of the Dominion High Council was unlike anything in the Empire's 300-year history. Supreme Commander Thane stood before the assembled war leaders, his ancient face showing the strain of recent defeats. The holographic displays around the chamber told a story of chaos and rebellion spreading across the galaxy. "The human uprising has infected 17 star systems," Thane announced, his voice heavy with authority. "Our subject species are questioning our rule. The Empire faces its greatest crisis since its founding." General Vex, freshly returned from the disaster on Earth, spoke from his position at the council table. "Supreme Commander, the humans possess weapons technology we did not know existed. Their planet has become a fortress that destroys any ship approaching it." Thane studied the tactical reports with growing alarm. Earth's defense network had made the planet unconquerable, but worse than that, it had become a symbol of successful resistance. Every day the human homeworld remained free. More colonies joined the rebellion. "We cannot allow this to continue," Thane declared. "Prepare the reserve fleet. Every available ship, every weapon system, every soldier we can muster. We will crush Earth so completely that no other species will dare follow their example. The order sent shockwaves through the Dominion military. The reserve fleet had never been deployed in the Empire's history. It consisted of over 2,000 ships, including the massive world-killer vessels that could crack planets open with their weapons. It was overkill on an unimaginable scale. Torres watched the approaching fleet through the Prometheus network's long-range sensors. The displays in the command center showed a wall of ships stretching across space, bigger than anything he had ever imagined. Even with Earth's advanced defenses, this armada could overwhelm them through sheer numbers. "How long until they reach us?" asked Davis, his face pale as he studied the sensor readings. 18 hours, Torres replied. Maybe less if they push their engines harder. The resistance leaders gathered around Torres as he worked frantically. At the command console, the Prometheus network was powerful, but it had limitations. The orbital satellites could destroy individual ships, but they would run out of ammunition before making a significant impact on a fleet this size. "What about the ground defenses?" asked Maria. "Can they hold against a planetary bombardment?" Torres shook his head grimly. "The underground systems are tough, but not tough enough for this. They are bringing world-killer ships. Once they start firing, nothing on the surface will survive." Rebecca studied the technical displays with growing understanding. "Torres, there is something else in the Prometheus files, something called the Phoenix Initiative. It was classified above my clearance level, but I can see references to it in the system logs." Torres accessed the Phoenix protocols and felt his blood turn cold as he read the specifications. It was Earth's ultimate weapon, a device that could turn the planet's core into a massive electromagnetic pulse generator. The explosion would destroy Earth completely, but it would also create an energy wave powerful enough to disable every ship within the solar system. "It's a doomsday weapon," Torres said quietly. "Earth dies, but so does the entire Dominion fleet." The resistance leaders stared at the technical readouts in stunned silence. The Phoenix Initiative was not a defense system. It was a suicide attack on a planetary scale. Torres continued reading through the files, learning the terrible truth. About humanity's final option, the device worked by destabilizing Earth's magnetic field and core rotation. The resulting explosion would be visible from neighboring star systems and would leave nothing behind except an expanding cloud of superheated gas, but the electromagnetic pulse would be so powerful that it would fry the electronics of every ship within 3 billion miles. "We can't do this," Davis said, his voice shaking. "There has to be another way." Torres studied the tactical situation one more time, running calculations through the Prometheus network's computers. No matter how he arranged the defenses, the outcome was the same. The Dominion fleet was simply too large to stop with conventional weapons. But if Earth died taking the reserve fleet with it, the Dominion Empire would lose its primary military force. The subject species, already in rebellion, would have a real chance to win their freedom. Humanity's sacrifice would save billions of lives across the galaxy. The approaching fleet was now visible to the naked eye, a dark shadow against the stars that grew larger by the hour. Dominion ships were taking positions around Earth, preparing to begin their bombardment. Their commanders were confident that nothing could stop them this time. Torres made contact with human resistance leaders on other worlds using the quantum communication system to send his final message. "This is Staff Sergeant Jake Torres on Earth. The Dominion Reserve Fleet is about to attack our world. We cannot stop them with conventional defenses." The responses came back immediately from colonies. Across the galaxy, voices filled with desperation and hope, asking if there was anything they could do to help. Torres listened to them all before continuing his transmission. "We have one option left," Torres said. "Earth can take the entire fleet with us when we fall. But this means our world will be destroyed. Every human still on the planet will die. We are asking you to carry on the fight without us." The silence that followed was deafening. Then, slowly, voices began responding from across the galaxy. Human colonies that had been fighting hopeless battles against Dominion forces suddenly realized that Earth's sacrifice would give them a real chance at victory. "Earth, this is New Singapore Colony," came one transmission. "We understand. Your sacrifice will not be forgotten. We will win this war for all of us." Similar messages poured in from every human settlement. The colonists understood what Torres was offering to do. Earth would die so that humanity could live free among the stars. Torres began the Phoenix activation sequence with steady hands. The process would take 6 hours to complete, giving the Dominion fleet time to move into position. The irony was perfect. The aliens' overwhelming force would ensure their own destruction. As the countdown began, Torres thought about the chain of events that had brought him to this moment. A malfunctioning drop pod had crashed him into occupied territory. His desperate fight for survival had inspired a resistance movement. The discovery of the Prometheus network had turned Earth into a weapon. Now, one Marine's accidental landing was about to change the course of galactic history. The Dominion bombardment began exactly as Torres had predicted. Massive energy beams lanced down from space, turning entire cities into glass. The aliens were methodical in their destruction, making sure nothing would survive their assault. But deep beneath the planet's surface, the Phoenix device was approaching critical activation. Earth's core was becoming unstable, building toward an explosion that would make supernovas look small by comparison. Torres remained at his post in the command center as the facility shook under orbital bombardment. Around him, the resistance fighters prepared for the end with quiet dignity. They had all chosen to stay and see the mission through to completion. Phoenix activation in 60 seconds, announced the computer system. Torres opened a final communication channel to the approaching Dominion fleet. Supreme Commander Thane himself was aboard the flagship, personally overseeing Earth's destruction. "This is Staff Sergeant Jake Torres, Human Marine Corps, to all Dominion forces," Torres broadcast. "You came here to destroy humanity. Instead, you have given us the greatest victory in galactic history. Earth dies today, but the Empire dies. With us?" The Phoenix device reached critical mass exactly as planned. Earth's core exploded outward in a chain reaction that consumed the planet in seconds. The electromagnetic pulse raced outward at the speed of light, washing over the Dominion fleet before they could react. Every ship in the reserve fleet went dark simultaneously. Their electronics fried, their engines dead, their weapons powerless. The pride of the Dominion military became floating coffins drifting through space. Across the galaxy, human colonies received the news within hours. Earth was gone, but the Empire's greatest fleet was destroyed. The rebellion that had started with one man's accidental landing had become a galactic revolution. The war was no longer lost. For humanity, scattered among the stars, the real fight for freedom was just beginning.